so much, everybody, for joining us for our MovingWorlds Institute Meet the Team, Ask Us Anything, and a little bit of information webinar. My name is Mark Horszewski. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of MovingWorlds, and really honored and excited to be telling you a little bit more about what's happening with the Institute, and of course, talking about our next call for applications. I'm here at the beautiful Impact Hub, where we hold office in Seattle, Washington, the United States. I'm joined by Millie. Hi, Millie, who's coming to us live from our office in Medellin, Colombia. Cole Hoover, who's joining us also from Seattle, who's the director of the Institute, and then Anna Phillips, who is our director of International and Strategic Partnerships, coming in from London. So they'll share a little bit more about themselves as we get underway here. But first, we just really wanted to say thank you all so much for joining, and just a quick couple of housekeeping items as we get in here. There is a chat box. You can use that, select the option to talk directly to the panelists. You can send us questions at any time throughout the presentation. The team here is standing by to answer those. Also on the Zoom bar, which is that little black bar that you have from Zoom with white icons, there should be a Q&A feature. You can click on that Q&A feature and ask us a question at any time, which is super helpful, convenient, and easy way to get us started. So with that said, we just wanted to go through, part of this was to meet the MovingWorlds team that you'd be interacting with the most as a fellow. So I just gave us brief little introductions so you could see where we're joining in from. But what we'll do is just go around the virtual table here, starting with Millie, and then Cole, and then Anna, to just give a quick little introduction so you can see exactly who it is that'll be talking to you for and answering your questions here in the next little bit. So Millie, you want to kick us off?
Hi, thank you, Mark. Hello, everyone. As Mark said, my name is Millie, and I'm calling in from Medellin, Colombia. I just want to apologize in advance for any noise. It seems like it's impossible to find a quiet place in this country, but that's part of what makes it a lot of fun. So with regards to MovingWorlds and MovingWorlds Institute, you guys will probably be most familiar with me when it comes to all things matching related. I'll be helping you to set up some wonderful projects all over the world that would help support both your professional growth as well as your personal goals as part of the MovingWorlds Institute. And so my contact information is below. Feel free to drop me a line at any time if you have questions particular to those. And with that, I'll pass it over to Cole.
Sweet, thanks, Millie. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Hoover. Just a little bit on my background, been a social entrepreneur for over a decade, working in microfinance and public health in the global south, and also taught at the University of Washington in social enterprise. My big passion is the future of education, and specifically building a community of practitioners and mentors and leaders who can help more and more people to use their skills for a greater social impact. As the director of the Institute, you'll be spending most of your time with me. So we'll be working together on curriculum, goal setting, mentor matching, and really maximizing a lot of the opportunities and the matches that Millie will be bringing to you. So such an honor to be here with you all today from all over the globe. We're really humbled to have such an amazing response.
Hi everybody, I'm Anna, and as Mark says, I'm calling in again from the Impact Hub. Shout out to our partners here. I represent MovingWorlds in Europe and globally. And I'll be involved in the Institute in Amsterdam, so I hope to meet you in person when that kicks off. Prior to joining MovingWorlds, I worked in global development organizations and social enterprises, and the common theme was always skills-based volunteering. I've been a skills-based volunteer myself a couple of times. I've managed probably over 100 of them, and I know that when it's done well, it has amazing impact for the organizations that you work with, and for myself as a professional, it was transformative for me. So I'm passionate about sharing that, and I look forward to finding out more about the journeys that all of you are on.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. So now that you all are aware of who is a part of this call and will be working with us over the next 41 minutes of this webinar, we want to start really the main content in the way that we start a lot of our Institute programming, which is taking a moment to kind of settle into ourselves and settle into our intention. And what I'll ask is for you all to join me. Admittedly, we're still experimenting here a little bit with the best way to do activities like this virtually. But to join me in taking a pause, even taking a deep breath, and to reflect on the bigger question that brought you to this webinar. Because this really isn't just a webinar, right? I think tuning into sessions like this, taking time to contemplate joining a fellowship program, going through the effort to apply and then go through the steps. We do things like that to make a mark on the world, to look at the people around us, to recognize them and their own beauty and the light that they bring to this world, and look for ways to make that shine brighter, to lift each other up while we lift ourselves up. And I think that really captures what this program is about. And so whether you decide to apply or not, whether you join the program or not, know that as a global community, Moving Worlds is dedicated to helping bridge connections, helping support each other, and using our collective skills, networks, time, talents, and energy to help ourselves rise as well as all of those around us. And it's really an incredible opportunity to connect with so many people from so many places. So as we go through the content, what I actually want to do is just step a moment back in time of how the Moving Worlds Institute came to be. And if you've seen some of our webinars before, you've heard this. And so I'll keep this very light. But, we started, almost 8 years ago now with the question of how do you get expertise to the parts of the world that need it the most, right? And these places are global. They exist in every continent, not every country. And in the exchange of expertise, what we learned was that something powerful was happening, is that people were being transformed in the act of giving, which really represents the Moving Worlds brand name. When you create movement, you in turn are moved. And so the Institute grew as a way to honor that growth that our professionals were experiencing and create a place not just for individuals to have a powerful international experience, but to do that with the collective support of a cohort, to provide additional learning and training, and then to use that as a foundation so you can accomplish what you want to accomplish with your own personal and professional lives. And so we've been honored and humbled and excited about a lot of the news that we've picked up and a spattering of that here. But I think the one, and I tend to pick a different one of these every time, but the one in the middle that really resonates when I think about the Institute is our Harvard Business Review post about how to use stretch assignments to support social good. And the takeaway there really being that when people stretch themselves to learn, to grow beyond their own comfort, but to do that in a place where those skills are actually needed, they create and absolutely catalyze change, but they do that in a way that helps them grow professionally and personally. And the Institute really harnesses that well. So what I'd like to do is turn it back over to Cole, who's going to talk a little bit more about what exactly you get out of the Institute and the timeline. Then we get to share some stories, and pretty soon we'll be in live Q&A session. So Cole, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. We'll get a chance to talk through just some of the structure, because I know so many of the questions that come up are really about kind of why we do what we do and how we do it. But before we do that, I wanted to give my colleague Anna an opportunity just to talk about, what is our objective? What is our reason to be? What are some of the big pieces of value that we're really trying to add to you as professionals? Anna works a lot with our corporate partners and our mentor network and the industry leaders who help to kind of teach and share and build upon our learning. So I'd love to hear from Anna a little bit about kind of our objective as a global network. So Anna, over to you.
Thanks, Cole. And if my connection is a little patchy, many apologies. Just shout and I'll hand it back to one of my colleagues with a stronger connection. So as Mark explained, the thinking behind MovingWorlds is to make sure that professional talent gets to the parts of the world that need it most, and to provide transformational learning experiences to those who are giving their skills. And the MovingWorlds Institute developed out of the need that we were seeing from the professionals who are coming to us, the requests for coaching, for mentoring, for learning, above and beyond the guides that we give to everyone who expertise through our site, a chance to really use this as a stretched assignment that's going to drive your career, whether that means staying in the same industry or changing industries altogether, but finding something that gives you purpose and drive and connects you to a wider social impact. And so the objective, as it says here, is that you will, through the Institute, build a global network while developing your skills in human-centered design thinking, shared value creation, and cross-cultural leadership. And you will use all of these key concepts and tools and techniques that are around creating shared values, shared social impact and value, that will align your career and your professional aspirations into a fulfilling and world positive career, so that you will better understand what is it the world needs, what is it that you uniquely are positioned to give, and how can you grow that into a career that fulfills you and does everything that you need your career to do.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna. Mark, if you could advance to the next slide, please. All right, so just a little bit about the fellowship experience. So I think, as many of you know, one of the core parts of the programming, one of the things that really is the foundation of everything we do, is human-centered design. So not only do we teach concepts of human-centered design and build on your tools and skills for going into organizations and working with communities, but we also follow the arc of human-centered design. So the fellowship is broken up into 3 2-month chunks. Inspiration, which is like casting a lot of ideas, thinking big, thinking creatively, going out there and finding new opportunities. And ideation. Ideation is all about starting to recognize patterns. I think so many of us, as we're in transition, whether in our current job or within our field, or maybe making a jump over into a different sector, we have a hard time recognizing patterns around what we love to do, how best our skills can be applied, and the ways that our impact can be seen in the world. So that's what we do in ideation. And then finally, we help you building with tools and guides and goal-setting activities, connections and mentors and industry leaders, a way to start implementing. So many people who are trying to get into the social impact field, the jobs that they're applying for, they demand this kind of specific experience, but you need experience to get there. And so what we do is we help to make sure that you are able to use your skills you've built over years and years in your careers, and translate them into impact for the social enterprise, and then help you to tell that story. So you have a greater opportunity to share moving forward and to kind of grow yourself within the impact field. So the ways that we do that is first through cohort collaboration. So we are a tight learning community of people who are supporting each other in heart and mind, and we're doing this online after our 3-day in-person experience. So our 3-day in-person experience is an amazing opportunity to come together, learn about each other, build trust, set goals. This is what happens in Amsterdam. Then the rest of the time, we're online. We're all across the globe. Our kind of diverse locations and perspectives are being shared on our online learning tool, Slack, where we can share resources, ask questions, contribute insights, and support each other in reaching our goals throughout the experience. So in addition to cohort collaboration, we also have a lot of other tools. Mark, if you could advance. So we have speakers. So we have industry leaders, we have mentors, people who are coming from all over the world, sharing intimate insights from their organizations, their institutions, and their impact. We're also pairing you one-on-one with a mentor. So many of you have spent time on the Moving Worlds Institute website. You'll see our speakers and mentors. These are an amazing group of people who are leading practitioners in their field who are a part of the Moving Worlds Institute community because they believe that this is the kind of educational community we need to make the change in the world we want to see. One of the main pieces and one of the things that we build up to throughout the Moving Worlds Institute Fellowship is the Experteering Project. So starting with the 3-day, we learn what skills that you're trying to contribute into the world. We then build on that with webinars, planning guides, and support of you in the field. You'll be working with Millie and the rest of our matching team to try to find the absolute best match for your skills and the impact that you want to have in the world. After that, we help you to process, reintegrate, and reflect on your experience. And then, like I said before, ultimately tell your story to future employers or other communities. In addition to connecting with industry leaders and case studies in shared value and human-centered design and cross-cultural leadership, we'll also be reading together. So we have monthly readings, which are articles shared, videos shared, and then these core kind of texts, which are books that run the gamut from better networking to latest social enterprise to learning how to ask better questions, and also getting an empathic understanding of things that communities experiencing poverty experience. So those are some of the books that we'll be digging into among many other learning resources. So the fellowship, it's this great time to come together and build community and have experience, but we also want you to build a portfolio. So many people come to us because they're in this significant life transition. So we've created a whole suite of tools and guides and resources that culminate in your capstone project, which is this thing that at the end of your Moving Worlds Institute experience, you will be able to keep forever. You'll be able to learn from, grow with, and share out. This includes setting goals with your mentors, going through assessments on how you find purpose in work, how you serve as a cross-cultural leadership, what your strengths truly are. We weave all of these things together to try to help you make the next steps in your career. So this portfolio is one of the things that you take away. And we believe that the only way to have an impact and the only way to truly learn is to do so in community. And so we provide accountability groups, which are smaller sections of the overall fellowship that you will be connected to. You'll do kind of a weekly conversation, a bi-weekly share out to the rest of the group. And this we find is something that not only holds accountability, but adds inspiration and helps you to set goals and achieve them, because the people that you care about, the people that you've built trust with, are every week nudging you to do so. So this is a little bit about the experience, and we share this right now knowing that there's going to be a lot of other questions related to what do you do during the fellowship, but we wanted to just make sure that everyone had a little bit of a level set and that we were all kind of on the same page before going into the Q&A, which will be a large part of our presentation. So thank you so much for listening. I know this probably brings up a lot of questions. We're so happy to answer them soon. But with that, and on the note of community, not only do you work with people in your current fellowship, but you will be connected to dozens and dozens of people who have been a part of the Moving Worlds Institute experience. We connect people across cohorts. We have mentorship that results from people who've gone out into the field and can come back and share their stories. And kind of in that spirit, we're so honored today to get to actually share out some of the stories of one of our alumni, Mirna, who's calling in from Italy right now. And Mirna was one of our first fellows and has had some amazing experiences, and her time with the Moving Worlds Institute Fellowship really set her kind of on an interesting path. So with that, we have Mirna on with us for a little bit and wanted to ask her a couple questions and then also allow you all to ask any questions you may have for Mirna, who is a living, breathing Moving Worlds Institute fellow alumni. So to get things going, Mirna, can you hear us? Oh, Mirna, I think your chat or your voice is muted right now. Oh, there you go.
Muted. Can you hear me now?
We can. Welcome, Mirna. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's so exciting to see you guys again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful to have you. And where are you calling in from right now?
I'm actually at my office at Bioversity International right now. Yeah.
Great. And you're
which is
currently
in
in
Rome,
Rome?
Italy. Yes. Yes, yes,
Awesome.
yes, I'm in Rome. Actually, our office is just a little bit outside of Rome. It's in Macarese, which is right by the beach. Not yet beach weather, but it's nice to be here in the summer anyway.
Nice. Cool. Well, Mirna, thank you again for being here. One of the biggest things that people applying for the Institute really, really are looking for is an opportunity to connect with people who've been through the experience and kind of hear what it was like for them. And so I think one of the hottest topics that a lot of people are, coming at is just what was the motivation? What was the thing that brings people to the Institute and to the program? And I wanted to kick off just by asking, what brought you to the Moving Worlds Institute Fellowship? What was either the spark or the motivation?
Yeah, well, for me, that's very easy to answer because I honestly felt that at the time when I was applying that I was in what you would call a rut, really, career-wise anyway. And I don't know if we're obviously all very different, and most of the people and most of peers that I even worked with and also that are outside of my work circle wouldn't necessarily agree with me, because on the outside it might have seemed that I had this great career going for me. I was working in the United Nations in very well-known and great organization of the United Nations, IFAD. It was dedicated to agricultural development and also worked as a financial institution. So it was kind of like a smaller World Bank that was also part of the UN. And it all sounded very exciting, and it probably is to many people. But for me, where I was within the organization just wasn't I wasn't doing what I thought I'd be doing. I felt that I was a small link in a long chain. I felt that I was writing a lot and reading a lot, but never experiencing that. And so as a result, I didn't really, really know what I was reading and writing about. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
And
no, totally.
yeah, and so I've been there. I was there for quite some time. I did move a little bit around the organization, and I managed to grow up to a certain point. But the way the UN also, I don't know if any of our listeners work in the UN, but the way it's organized is there are sort of categories within the contract system, and unfortunately jumping from one to the other is next to impossible, really. It is possible, but very, very difficult, and most people do advise you to leave for some time, try something different, gain some other experience, and come back in. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. And after 10 years of being there, I had come to a sort of limit. And I said, this year I'm going to try whatever I can. And it was funny because right around that time, I ran into Moving Worlds on my Twitter account. So yeah, it does work. And I looked into it and I said, I'm not sure I understand entirely what it's about, but I'm going to go for it. And I remember speaking to you on the phone for the first time, and it sounded like something that I could really benefit from. And one of the things, and you mentioned it earlier, is precisely that one thing that I was really missing in trying to grow further in this career in the work of development and social work is that practical experience. I mean, I have it in an office setting, but what's really looked at highly is precisely that field experience, or that you're on the ground, not just writing about it, but they have actually experienced it and lived through it. So I know that my brief experience with the Moving Worlds expertise might not fill that entirely, but it's a step and it's something. So that was my main motivator, I'd say.
Yeah, and I'm curious, Mirna, knowing about your project and knowing how you were able to use some of your communication skills and really elevate the message of innovative youth with action. What were you specifically looking for in a field experience that was so different from what you were getting at the UN beyond, getting out of the office?
Well, let's see. I'm going to use a sort of an analogy, if I may. I was thinking about this. Sometimes when you're in an office and you work with people and you're corresponding by email, and you've never met the person before, and then you meet them, and it adds like a whole other layer. And so your future kind of corresponding and collaborating with them is a little bit altered. I mean, it depends on, if they left a good impression, bad impression, how you guys got along, and so on. And so you're putting a sort of a face to the name, and that's what I felt, that's what I really needed, and I felt that I got in the end, was putting a sort of experience to the words I was writing and reading. And it's a little bit hard to also talk about like this, but it really, I mean, I can't, it's hard to mention specifics, but there's so many times where I felt like I was doing what I did in experteering was not so new to me that I didn't know anything about it, because I was kind of doing that, but I wasn't doing it enough. Like, it wasn't in there. Even just, and then, I mean, there are a few technical things that I also really wanted to gain and feel as though I did, and that's in the agricultural aspect, because the organization I was working for, and something that I am still very interested in and continue to work in, is rural development, in agriculture mainly, and agribusiness, and also a little bit of microfinance. So again, I knew all that theoretically, but then meeting with the people, discussing, seeing the NGO, how they're working the project, how they're designing the project that they do, why they're designing it in a certain way, what are the hurdles and obstacles. It's so, to put it to the risk of sounding cliche, but it's really so enriching when you're actually in there working on it and designing the project, hands-on sort of. And speaking to the people, the beneficiaries that you're supposed to be designing for. Really, the problems that come out, even from things that maybe at a UN level are deemed a little bit too minute or unimportant or something, it's still sort of touching and enriching that those problems exist as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That makes so much sense. I'm curious, on the other side of the community, what was your experience like when you first met all of the other fellows who were part of your cohort? What was unique about this community for you, and what was the 3-day in-person experience like?
Oh, I think that's one of the best parts, honestly, the thing, because again, like I said before, even for the email analogy, I mean, you are continuing to work with that group for the rest of the program, and but you do so remotely. So the fact that also you're meeting them in person at first, it kind of makes you feel closer to them. You're understanding their story a bit more, the background, what they've done before, and so on. And what I thought was also interesting was that, well, for me, first of all, going to Seattle, because that's where it was when I did this for 3 days, like that was finally, I felt, for me, something different and brave that I'm finally doing after 10 years of staying in the same place. And everyone I knew also was anxious to find out what I was getting from it, what I was doing, because like I said, since I myself wasn't too sure, they were all waiting for my feedback anxiously. And so when we did all meet and got to know each other, I really enjoyed seeing the sort of all the different professional backgrounds people were coming from. That was really interesting and motivating, because I felt that you had to come from one specific kind of background. You had to have, I don't know, studied this either development or social work, and had to have started working in there. Whereas really, actually, I think it's really great if you have an expertise in something entirely different and then realize you can apply it to this field as well. So I thought that was really cool how everybody came from a different perspective like that. And the other thing I really enjoyed was that, when we talked a lot about purpose, and that this is one of the reasons we're so motivated to do this kind of work, is that our search for purpose. And I kind of linked that to a generation. I thought that maybe it was specific to a certain generation, and maybe it is more so than others. But again, in our group, we had such a variety of generations, and which also brought in a kind of a richness of experience and points of view. And I didn't feel too old or anything, or too young, or you fit right in wherever you are. And
Yeah.
so more or less, yeah, but it was really exciting. The venue was fantastic. Everybody, we were all kind of in this together, more or less with the same aim. It was a great experience. I loved those 3 days.
Yeah, so do we. Thanks, Mirna. One kind of last major question for you is what really changed for you post fellowship, and like maybe what were some of your experiences a bridge for? What happened?
Well, I have a lot more work to do. That's one thing.
Me too.
But work I welcome a lot, and I mean that work thanks to the Moving Words program and my expertiering. And no, I do welcome that because I feel that work is it's really enriching for me personally anyway. And so specifically what I mean is that I've kept in touch, and I'm continuing to collaborate and work with the Innovative Youth with Action Uganda, the organization. I wish I could even dedicate more time to that, but I have also the work that I'm employed at the Bioversity, so can't do as much as I wish I can. But that's definitely, I mean, the continued collaboration is great. I'm supposed to go back also in June if all goes well to check up on some of the projects we started. And also just for me, the other thing is that I feel like I have, though I feel like I haven't used it as much as I can, but I do feel like I have a group that went through a similar experience and that I could go back to and ask for advice or just kind of share, what the next steps are, what they've been through. I haven't exactly done that yet, but it's always, in the back of my mind thinking, when I start working on this other project, I wonder, if they'll be able to help me out, or if they know, if ask them how they moved on from, if they're all keeping in touch with their projects and how that's going. But definitely, I think the biggest thing for me is, well, actually, sorry, there's one other thing, and that's the one big thing that I was also seeking when going into this, and that's a little bit of a boost in confidence, precisely because I always felt a little bit left behind, or that I was missing something so important to this line of work that most people around me either had somehow had or are having through their work, and I wasn't getting, which is this field experience. So for me, that was always kind of, I don't know, I didn't feel adequate enough, or felt almost, that I was at this job by sheer luck, because generally they do seek the field experience. So for me not to have had it and to be working at the UN and at a pretty decent contract, I've always felt that I was behind. I had something that I was missing something that others had, and that really put me in a difficult position when I would try to network or even at interviews. I wasn't comfortable with that at all, because I was sure, something is going to come up that's going to expose that I didn't have this experience, or I didn't go through that. And again, I said, the 2 months, it's definitely not going to, I'm not completely an expert in field work in Uganda, but I'm continuing to work with them. I hope that I continue for a long time, and that these skills are just going to continue improving, and so with my confidence. I feel like I'm on the right track, really.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Mirna. And I know that you need to head out to some other meetings in a moment, but was wondering if there's any questions from the audience for Mirna. You've got right here, MovingWorlds Institute alumni, someone who's been through the fellowship. Are there any questions for Mirna about her experience, or what she's done next, or kind of what things she considered before joining the fellowship?
Yes, Cole, there is, Mirna, there's one question coming in, and it's regarding what you're doing now. The question is, are you fulfilled in what it is you're doing right now, and is it because of the fellowship that you got into this new career path?
Okay, so if I am fulfilled, I mean, that's a big question, because I feel like I'm a little bit I can't remember how that saying goes. Stay hungry, right? I feel
That works. Yeah.
Stay foolish. Yeah.
That's great.
I do feel a little bit like that. Now, I don't know, sometimes I think, oh yeah, that's great. You know, one has to keep improving on themselves and working on themselves. But on the other hand, I get a lot of people saying also, you know, be happy with what you have. And I do feel definitely more fulfilled than what I was doing before. My role right now is absolutely more challenging, and I'm learning so much. I mean, it's really cool what we're doing. This smaller organization that I'm working with now is not part of the UN, but it's an organization that deals with agro biodiversity mainly, and so we're trying to sort of conserve and promote diverse diets and crops that are at risk of extinction. And it's also really important in terms of development work, because a lot of countries, for example in Uganda, they're importing a lot of more expensive crops and crops that might not be as nutritious and are thus kind of they're more indigenous crop are then at the getting a risk of being extinct, whereas they're more adapted to their local condition and are very nutritious just as well. But anyway, sorry about that. I was going a bit on a tangent, but just to tell you how much, you know, I really do enjoy the work and the message, and I do feel much more fulfilled. I don't think, however, this is, you know, it. I do want to continue looking for other work and continue to, for example, work with this project in Uganda, try to learn as much as possible from there, and then move on from there. Maybe even I wouldn't mind going back to the UN, but I wouldn't like to go back to my same position, obviously. So I wouldn't mind going back into something more engaging and more challenging there as well. So that would be that. But so now whether moving worlds is what made this happen for me, that's a difficult question as well, because I mean, who knows? On one hand, I do think that it helped definitely in my interview. You know, I was able to make some points. I had some practical experience to draw from. And I did use that. For example, the expertarian in Uganda definitely helped. And again, as well, there's a lot of tips and hints that you get from the material and from the program. But you know, it's hard to say now if that was the decisive factor exactly. But I do think, I mean, I would definitely do it again, and I do think that it helped me a lot in the process. I hope
Awesome.
that answers.
Thanks, Mirna. Any other questions for Mirna before she needs to jump off?
That seems to be the only one that came through today, but feel free to send us any emails afterwards.
Yeah, and happy to make connections. I know that for those of you in the application process, yeah, you may have some questions that you can talk through with me or Anna or another member of the Moving Worlds team, but also happy to make other connections to folks like Mirna. So with that, Mirna, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's your evening, as it's evening for many of you. But we really, really appreciate you being a part of this community, and just, yeah, so humbled by the impact you've been able to have, and so excited to see kind of where you keep going as you stay hungry.
Yeah. So. Which I'm really literally hungry right now.
Yeah, right. Okay, go eat dinner. Yeah, you earned it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mirna.
Mirna.
You guys, though, really.
All right. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah. All right. Bye, Mirna.
Bye. Bye.
All right, Millie, I'll turn it over to you now to open it up for general questions for anything that's come up for people throughout the experience, but really happy to hear kind of anything that's coming up.
Quick reminder, guys, if you hover to the bottom of the screen, you'll see the black panel that allows you to submit questions to us via the Q&A feature, or to submit questions via the chat box to the panelists. And so with that, Cole, I'm actually going to start out with, we've got quite a few questions grouped, and I'm going to start grouping them together to make it a bit easier for the panelists to answer questions. But the first one, I think will probably help us set the scene for everyone. It is, what do you look for in a MovingWorlds Institute? And specifically, this group of individuals are interested in finding out how, what are you looking for within the Institute fellowship application, especially for people who may not have had a lot of experience working within the nonprofit sector or with social impact organizations. Will they still be able to join? Cole?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a question we get all the time. I would say one thing, just to kind of set the framework that we use, is that we really celebrate diversity within our fellowships as one of our highest values, because we believe that whether it's the country you're coming from, the culture, the company, the sector, that you all bring this amazing richness of perspectives, and truly believe that the ways that we're going to solve some of the greatest problems our world faces is going to be collaboration, and it's going to be collaboration across sectors. So we welcome people from not-for-profit, government, corporate, all across. We've had artists, videographers, computer programmers, designers, business people. And I'd say the things that really they have in common is these are folks who have 5 to 15 years career experience. Some have more. I mean, we've had people as young as 25 years old, and people who are maybe kind of later in their career in their 60s. So we have a huge swath of people, and the things that we look for are people who have demonstrated both leadership within their careers. So these are high potential, kind of high achieving individuals who have distinguished themselves in their work, and also people who have sought out service. So it doesn't have to mean working with a social enterprise or a foundation or a not-for-profit, but these are people who, through the way they showed up in their community, through the way they showed up through volunteering, that they were always trying to use their skills, their access, their power as a way to make life better for others. So what we really want you to do during your application is to tell your story, and tell your story of what you're looking for. I think that one other part of it is we are as much looking at what you are trying to either transition into or grow towards as much as we're looking at what you've done. So really try to emphasize that. And then also know that in our application process, we're going to get on the phone. We're going to have a one-on-one with you. We're going to learn more deeply about you. That's just something in our process that we think is the most important. So hopefully that gives a little bit of insight into our process and some of the things we look for.
All right, thank you so much, Cole. This one is related to that last question. On the flip side of this, for individuals who are far along in their career, how can this program benefit them? For example, we have some individuals who have had multi-year experience within the NGO sectors, anywhere between 7 to 15 years. Would this program still be appropriate for them, Anna?
Hi, Millie. Yes, absolutely. And I think we've seen this in our cohort that we've had some very senior leaders, as Cole said, and people who represent not just the corporate sector, but academia, non-profits, government. The approach the MovingWorlds Institute takes to purpose is to differentiate that from cause. So purpose is really about what fulfills us and drives us as individuals, what makes us excited to get up and go to work. So I think it's interesting with Myrna's experience. She was sharing, you know, she had a lot of very creditable and reputable experience within the nonprofit and a kind of specific technical field, and she was working in, you know, one of the world's leading organizations. But the reason she came to the Institute was to identify what was her purpose as an individual professional. And so we feel that this is enormous value, whatever sector you're in and whatever stage of your career. It's a chance to step back, think about what are my unique skills, what really excites me, who do I like to work with on a day-to-day basis, what tasks am I good at, what tasks fill me with joy, what excites me. And so absolutely, yes, I would say in answer to that question, it is a relevant program.
And one thing I'd add on that too is that, you know, we've had people who have been social entrepreneurs who've worked out in the field. They've been award-winning social entrepreneurs, but kind of they came to us at this moment of transition, this moment of kind of recalibrating, and they learned new things about concepts they'd heard about for years, like shared value or social or human-centered design or cross-cultural leadership, and it allowed them to kind of take their use of these tools to a whole new level and to do it in community. So it's definitely a unique program in that way.
Yeah, and to piggyback on Anna and Cole's answers right there, it also really depends on where you are in your life. I mean, we have quite a few fellows who joined the program. They're looking to build out their network and start that next venture in their lives. You know, some people end up leaving and starting their own consultancy business, opening social enterprises in other parts of the world. And so regardless of what stage you're in, what your experience level is at, the program is designed to be able to tailor to those unique needs and those unique goals moving forward. And so with that, I'm going to go over to a series of new questions. These are more so on like the logistics side. This question is for, we have quite a few interested individuals who work full-time or all full-time graduate students. And so they're curious to know what the weekly workload looks like during the program. Cole, I think this will be best for you.
Sure, yeah. So we like to say that, you know, we account for, say, up to 5 hours a week. That's between readings, accountability group conversations, webinars that are going to pop up. The one thing that I'd say about that, though, is there's some periods that are going to be very intense. There's some periods that you are just being a part of this community and sharing ideas and engaging. The thing that we design for really is one of our highest values, in addition to diversity, is kind of diversity from a work perspective. So we know that we have full-time individuals who maybe aren't ready to make that leap, or maybe they're actually entrepreneurs and they're trying to get ahead in their company and they're using this experience to accelerate them. We design the program to be as flexible as possible for people with different working schedules. So in past cohorts, we've had people who quit their job day one, they're going to the field, they're going to be there for 6 to 9 months. And we had people who are still in their very high-powered full-time job. They've got kids at home. We make everything as modular as possible, and I work with you all individually, and you're supported through your accountability groups to get to things when they matter for you and make sure that they're still kind of building in the same direction and building the same momentum. But what I would just say is, you know, a couple hours a week would be the minimum for reading and engaging. It also depends on how quickly you read and how much time you want to spend on certain ideas. But the one thing I would say is it's been designed for people coming from a variety of commitments, and we value that. We don't just kind of accommodate that, we value that.
Okay, wonderfully said there, Cole. So continuing on the theme of logistics, especially with people coming from various backgrounds with various commitments, we have quite a few questions pertaining to the expertarian component of the program. On the website, it says that you're required to be in the field for 2 to 6 weeks. Can you talk a little bit more about why there's a range, and can I go expertarian for a shorter or a longer amount of time, or outside of like the range that's on the calendar? I guess here we'll start with Cole, and then Anna can also tag team.
Oh, okay, that sounds great. Yeah, so we believe that 2 weeks in the field gives you an opportunity to jump into the community, to build relationships, and to have some kind of an impact. We always encourage people to go more if possible. We've had people who've gone for 6 months and then ended up staying and getting hired on by one of the organizations they were working with. And we've had some people who have a very, very full life, and all that they could make happen was either a 2-week experience or 2 one-week experiences in the field. The one thing I'd say on that is, no matter how long you're going, and we do try to encourage people to go for longer if possible, we provide you with tools, planning guides, and a framework so you're actually able to work remotely with your organization leading up to the time in the field. You know, I don't think any of us are going to debate or believe that you can go with no context, spend 2 weeks in the field and have this huge impact. It's just not possible. It's not relevant. It's not real. But what you can do is you can build a relationship. You can work with people online. You can benefit from some of the positive aspects of our globalized world and set yourself up for success, no matter how long your expertarian experience is going to be in the field. That's what we support you with our planning guides and coming up with.
And I would just add, picking up on the impact point that Cole was making, I spend a lot of time presenting MovingWorlds externally and explaining what is the social impact of our placements that put professionals with skills such as yours into field organizations, and what can happen in 1 week or 2 weeks. And I would say, as a professional, would you hire a consultant to do this piece of work? And often there are projects that are very time bound, that have a specific deliverable. For example, training up the company on a new software platform, or upgrading the UX experience on their website. There are discrete projects that can be achieved and done in a 2-week time frame. And then there are other projects and involvements which are much longer, and that's where you being on the ground for longer will have a greater impact. So we have hundreds of organizations all the time posting ORIC project. And because they have a range of needs, it's easy for you as a professional to match to whatever that is and to find a project that's going to fit the time frame and the professional skills that you have available to give.
Yeah, well said, Anna.
Thank you both. Oh, and I guess to also add on one more thing to that question right there, specifically about the flexibility of when you can go expertarian and for how long. We put no maximum cap on the expertarian amount. You can go for as long as you are willing and able to. Our matching team will definitely work with you to find an appropriate project to meet your needs. And in terms of when you can go, that's also where our matching team will also come in to work with you on a timeline that is reasonable given where you are in life. And so there's no strict starting point for every single member of the fellowship to go expertarian. So with that right there, I have another question also related to expertarian, which comes from one individual who has had a lot of experience in the field already. And her question is, can I go expertarian within the country that I'm currently living right now? Cole?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. You absolutely can. We've supported people with all kinds of expertarian experiences. We, as a part of the fellowship, because we really want you to grow, we want you to stretch, we want you to be able to take your skills to a whole nother level. That being said, we want it to be a kind of stretch experience in some ways, but if that could be accomplished with a project in your country that you're living in, absolutely. There's no limitations on that. I mean, we may push you, or we may nudge you, or we may ask you questions about kind of the impact you'll be able to have, or the growth that you'll be able to experience, or the skills that you'll be able to showcase. But you know, as long as all of those things are being achieved, absolutely, we support matches all over the world. And if the most relevant and high impact place that you can have an impact is in your own country, then that we're behind you.
Wonderful, thank you, Cole. And so throughout the whole entire presentation, we've talked a lot about aligning professional growth with purpose as part of the fellowship. So there's one question specifically asking exactly how does the Institute go about helping fellows find their purpose? Anna?
Sure. So there's a growing kind of movement around the concept of purpose. Oh, hi there, can you hear me? Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay. So there's a growing movement around this concept of purpose and what it means. And we're very fortunate to have Aaron Hurst, who's the originator of this idea, as one of the mentors and speakers in the fellowship. And we use his tool, which is the Imperative Purpose Assessment. And we use this in tandem with a number of different tools, which Cole can explain in more detail, which identify your strengths and take you through a series of reflection. When we talk about purpose, that's the tool in which we use, and we find it very helpful to think about what is the real motivator for us as individual professionals. So I would say that's the tool that we use, and then everything, all of the curriculum, the materials that we're given, and above all the placement in the field are ways for you to explore this further and go through the stages that Cole outlined at the beginning of our presentation, through the ideation and then into the implementation phase to test this out on the ground.
Wonderful, thank you. And so now let's kind of shift it a little bit over to the next bucket of questions, which is surrounding upper management, staff development. We have quite a few questions coming in from interested participants asking, how do I talk to my employers or upper management to get buy-in for my participation in the program? And Cole?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'd actually love to, if I could invite Mark to share a little bit about this from his perspective. Mark has worked with companies all over the world for years and has really been one of the thought leaders around skill-based volunteering and how it leads to leadership development within companies. So Mark, if you could share a little bit about, like, what is it to talk to your boss about this? How do you make the sell on?
Absolutely. And I would say that we probably have in every class, about 20% of the members are really coming for the sake of growing as leaders for their company. In some cases, even receiving full or partial sponsorship from their employers. We support that process in a couple of ways. We provide content. We're even happy to talk to learning and development professionals within your organization. As Cole mentioned, we also support programs for corporations like Microsoft, Stiftung, Caring, Booking.com, and more to harness the power of really what is the Institute and the expert hearing experience to develop their own employees and leaders. And so we both have content, we have data, and we also have email templates and even discussion templates and recommendations where if you are looking for sponsorship support from your company, we are happy to help with that. And maybe on a related theme, if you're looking for other funding guidance related to crowdfunding or getting support from spouse or friends, by all means, connect with our team. We've had fellows that have done that in the past. We continue to collect best practices and we can share that with you.
Thank you so much, Mark. It seems like we're hitting the hour mark pretty soon. And so if you guys have any last minute questions, please throw them into the Q&A. Otherwise, you can also reach us at mwi@movingworlds.org or Anna, Cole, Mark, or myself individually for more questions after the webinar is over. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cole to wrap up.
Yeah, just thank you all so much for being here. We have been so pleased, so humbled, so excited by the continued growth of the MovingWorlds Institute. And one of the things that's really done it is just seeing that moment where people like Mirna or Davide or others that you've maybe read about or watched videos on come together for that in-person. They look around the room, they see all these people who on the surface level look different from them, but they just have that kind of sigh of relief when they start hearing things that they've been like holding inside for so long, ways that they want to articulate their purpose, ways that they want work to show up in their life, the kind of impact they want to have. Like just getting to be a part of the supportive community inspires us. So we're really, really excited to speak with any of you who are interested in joining us, and we're available. On the website, you can see my personal phone number, so you can reach out to me via mobile. We've got our calendar links up there as well. We'll be sending out some more information to you, but really do not hesitate to reach out. We love doing one-on-ones. That's how we make sure that our cohorts are filled with the kind of people that we want to have. So thank you for coming. Thank you for your questions. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening. I know we have people calling in from all over the world. Please reach out. We're so excited to go on this journey with you and to learn more about you. So with that, on behalf of Moving Worlds, I'd love to sign off and say goodbye to everyone, and we'll speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.